Hi, ELED 450 students. I'm going to give this a shot again and see if I can't make this work for you guys to view our lesson from Wednesday, October 22nd. So the learning target for this lesson, I'm just going to pull up our PowerPoint just real quick on screen share so that you can kind of see what's going on. But our learning target was I can synthesize information from the Common Core Literature Standards, the keys of comprehension, which we talked about last week and on Monday, and a published lesson idea from readworks.org to come up with a whole class lesson of my own. The idea behind this is that you will be able to have a better idea of how to write a learning target for a reading lesson, and then how to select text of the appropriate level for your students for your lesson, and how to use somebody else's idea and modify it to fit your students' needs. So I'm going to kind of, as I go back and forth talking about this, I'm going to share with you how I would go about doing it, and I'm going to model writing my own lesson centered around the learning targets. I can identify the characters in a text. I can identify the major events or challenges in a text, and I can describe how characters respond to major events and challenges in a text. Now remember, I gave you a different lesson plan format that I thought might be a little bit easier to utilize. So here's one that I have started. You can see that I have the Common Core Standard, and this is a second grade Common Core Standard. I can describe how characters in a story respond to major events and challenges. And here are those learning targets that I talked about. The way I got those learning targets, there's two different ways to do it. You can break it up yourself. However, the state of South Dakota has broken them down for us. So you can see here that you have all of the second grade standards. So these are the reading literature standards. I am doing the third reading literature standard. So I'm just scrolling down, and you can see this is the standard that I was talking about. And here are those learning targets, and then I added an additional one based on the lesson that I was going to do. But I can identify the characters in a text. So I would highly recommend using this website to help you as you're trying to figure out how to break down your standards, since often it's very difficult to teach a whole standard in just one lesson. So anyways, what you're going to do, you guys from what Monday had come up with the standard and the learning targets, and then decided how to connect that standard to strategy or one of the keys of comprehension. And I decided I was going to connect mine to making inferences. And then I decided to take an idea from Pinterest that I could connect to that lesson. So my idea from your guys' Pinterest site, oops, that's the wrong PowerPoint, sorry, was this making inferences anchor chart that I could refer to as I was teaching lessons, because since I'm having students infer a character's personality based on some of their actions and characteristics, we could talk about what we already know about those actions and characteristics, what we know about the character text clues, and how we can infer their personality through using that information. Now, once you have a standard and a strategy that you want to focus on, you need to pick a text that works. And so I'm modeling my lesson off of readworks.org, a lesson off of readworks.org, and it has a book on that lesson that I thought would be useful. However, the problem is I don't have the book. So here's the lesson that I liked that fit with my standard. And it's about Lily's purple plastic purse, which is a Lexile level of 540, which matches the needs of a second grade student, especially for a read aloud. It may be a little bit advanced for an independent read for a second grade student. But I need to find a text that would that I have access to that would be of a similar reading level that I could accomplish the same thing with. So anyways, what you're going to want to do is start to understand Lexile levels. And so I'm going to show you just a quick video about what a Lexile level is and how you can use that to make some decisions about text that you use with students.
The Lexile framework for reading is a way to connect children with books and other materials that will help them grow as readers. Consider this. A father takes his son Billy to buy a new pair of basketball sneakers. The salesperson asks, "How old is your son?" The father answers, "He's 12. So the salesperson points to a shelf and says, "Here are our age 12 basketball sneakers." Not likely, right? We don't buy shoes based on our age, we buy them based on the size of our feet. Like shoes, books aren't one-size-fits-all ages. Yet for years we've matched readers with reading materials based on age or grade level. We need a better way to connect children with materials that will help them grow as readers. That's where the Lexile framework for reading can help. When shoe shopping, the scale used to measure Billy's foot tells you his shoe size, not his age. In the same way, the Lexile framework determines the child's reading ability, not his grade level. Take Daniel here. He's 9 years old and in 4th grade. Daniel likes science fiction, so he's given books that are considered 4th grade science fiction to read. But what if Daniel's reading ability is much higher than the average 4th grader? Or what if he's not quite reading on a 4th grade level? Like Billy's age 12 basketball sneakers, the text simply doesn't fit the child. The Lexile framework for reading is an educational tool that connects readers with reading materials using a common measure called a Lexile. It was developed after 20 years of research by US-based educational measurement company Metametrics. The value of a Lexile measure has been proven time and time again, and is now recognized as the most accurate way to match readers with text. What makes the Lexile framework unique, and what has led to its widespread adoption, is that it measures both reading ability and text difficulty on the same scale. The result is 2 Lexile measures, one for the reader and one for the text. A Lexile reader measure describes a child's reading ability. A Lexile text measure describes the difficulty of a particular text. Both Lexile measures are represented by a number, followed by the letter L. The measures sit on the Lexile scale, which ranges from below 200 Lexile for beginning readers in text to above 1700 Lexile for advanced readers in text. When used together, Lexile reader measures and Lexile text measures help you to connect children with books and other materials that meet and challenge their unique reading abilities. Here's how the process works. Susie takes one of the many reading tests that is linked with the Lexile framework. When she receives her student report, her reading score also is reported as a Lexile measure. As for the difficulty of a text, this is calculated using a proprietary Lexile equation. The equation uses sentence length and word frequency to determine the Lexile measure of the text, whether it be a book, a magazine article, or a single passage. When you know Susie's Lexile measure, you can use it to connect her with books in her Lexile range, about 50 Lexile above and 100 Lexile below her Lexile measure. One way is to search the Lexile book database for titles within her Lexile range. Susie also has told us what topics she likes to read about, so we can enter that information too. Within seconds, Susie has a list of suggested books that is completely personalized to her reading ability and interests. She then can look for those books at her local library or bookstore. All in all, it's a quick and easy process with an unbelievably powerful outcome. But Lexile measures provide more than a way to pick the right book for a child to read. They are powerful tools for targeting instruction and improving achievement across all grade levels and subjects. While Lexile measures are not intended to replace the valuable role of teachers and librarians, the measures do support them in connecting students with appropriate reading materials. For example, a science teacher can see how the Lexile measure of a textbook compares with the Lexile measure of each student in the class. Students above or below the Lexile measure of the textbook can be connected with more ability-appropriate content. Tens of millions of books, articles, and websites have Lexile measures, and this number increases every day. Lexile measures also provide parents with a powerful tool for connecting children with reading materials at home. Unlike other test results that might simply get posted on the refrigerator or cause parents to have sleepless nights, Lexile measures offer a way to take action. During the summer, after school, or on weekends, families can visit the library or bookstore and use Lexile measures to select reading materials that will strengthen the child's literacy skills. And because Lexile measures track progress from year to year, families can monitor growth in reading ability, similar to marking the child's height on a wall with a pencil. Research has proven that reading is critical to every child's life chances. A disadvantaged reader is a disadvantaged learner. By reading material at their Lexile level, children strengthen important literacy skills and develop a lifelong love of reading.
So as you heard in the video, Lexile level describes both a reader and then the text. One thing, as I said in the video, that Lexile levels don't necessarily, are not necessarily consistent from grade to grade for students, and you're going to have a range of Lexile levels for the students in your class that don't necessarily fit a prescribed measure. They do have a list of approximated Lexile levels for grade levels, just as a way to provide some ideas of what might be a great level for your students to read. So you can see here on Lexile.com, there's a place where they mention that. So first grader would be up to 300 Lexile level on average, whereas a sixth grader would be anywhere from 665 to 1,000 Lexile level. Now, I was a sixth grade reading teacher, and when I was a sixth grade reading teacher and utilized Lexile levels, I would have students as low as 330 and as high as 1,200. So obviously there is a range of readers within the classroom that you need to be aware of. But that being said, you can definitely use this as a point of reference, and especially with a read aloud type text, the students that you're reading aloud to, you can actually read at a higher level than their independent reading level because you're there to support them. So what you can do is you can go to Lexile.com when you are planning your lesson. And if you have a book and you want to find out what the Lexile level is, you can just do a quick book search. So the book that I wanted to use in replace of the Purple Purse book was Ladybug Girl and Bumblebee Boy, but I wanted to make sure that the Lexile level was appropriate. As you can see on here, it has been ranked as a Lexile level of 580. If you recall, the other book was at a Lexile level of 540, so it's pretty close, and I feel like it would be an appropriate level, especially for a read aloud for second grade students. So that's what I'm going to choose as I'm modifying my lessons. And you can also search in many different ways to find Lexile levels on here. On this particular website, you can do a Lexile minimum, so 300 to 600, and see what text that you come up with. So maybe you can click that you would like anything within that level, and so it just starts listing, like April Fool, if you wanted to see if the library had any of these books. Or you could get more specific, look for keywords within that range, look for specific types of books, like a graphic novel. High-low, a high-low text means it's for a higher level reader, so like a sixth grade reader, but they're reading more at a third grade level. The Lexile could be at a lower level, but the content in the book is high. So there's just all sorts of tools that you could use to figure out if your text that you want to use is correct for your students. So Now that I have a text selected and I have ensured that it matches the Lexile level that I want by going to lexile.com, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a lesson idea that might match. And this was actually the lesson idea that I came up with last week that or on Monday that I shared with you. Let's see. So hold on just a second, wrong page. And I got it from readworks.org, which readworks.org is an excellent resource, but you can use any lesson that meets the standard that you're trying to teach, and you can modify it to meet your students' needs. So this would be a lesson that is on the standard that I want to teach, and it's written specifically for this particular book, which is called Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. However, like I said, I didn't have that book, so I'm writing my lesson about Ladybug Girl and Bumblebee Boy. So as I'm starting to fill this out, I see that this lesson has a worksheet included in it, or a document that the students can fill out as they go through it. I can download that worksheet as a Word document and modify it so that it doesn't have Lily's Purple Plastic Purse, but instead the text that I'm going to use. And so I put that in how I was going to assess the students. And then I'm just going to go through and start to fill out the lesson plan. So one of the things I knew I wanted to draw out was that idea of making an inference of a character's personality. So I put that in the getting the students' attention and just wanted to remind them about that. And then I'm just going through the website that I was showing you with the lesson plan. And I am using that as a guide to fill this out. So within the lesson plan, it says teacher modeling, and it talks about how they are going to talk about what a personality trait is and how you can find clues in the text that would tell you maybe a character's personality, like their actions or their feelings or their thoughts. And it talks about how they may mention that these are my actions and feelings and thoughts, so this would be what I would consider my personality to be. And so these are things that I could include in this introduction. I would also introduce the text and talk about, the characters just a little bit ahead of time so that the students can get some background knowledge on the book that they're going to read. And so essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking ideas from here and I am plugging it into the lesson plan as I see fit. Do you have to use the lesson plan exactly as is? If you want to modify the worksheet, can you modify the worksheet? Absolutely. It's just a way to gauge on if your lesson will be effective, since this is a published lesson, and also if it aligns to the standards. So how do you find a lesson that's aligned to the standard that you want to teach? Well, here it says my standard alignment. I selected South Dakota because that's where we live, and so I'm going to select a grade level, second grade, because that's where I am potentially teaching. And then I look at my standard. My standard was RL 2.3. Remember, when you're looking at standards and how they're numbered, this means reading, literature, grade level 2, anchor standard 1. So mine was anchor standard 3, so I am just going to scroll down until I get to that. So there's grade 2, anchor standard 2, and here's grade 2, anchor standard 3, and this would be the lesson that I had decided upon. But I may choose any of these lessons within here, whatever seems to work best for me and my students in the unit that I'm working on. So readworks.org is just a great site to explore for lesson ideas and unit ideas, and is all aligned to Common Core standards. Let's say you're not teaching in South Dakota. It has the standards for all of the different states. So you can check those out. And New Mexico, I believe, is a Common Core state. So they would be obviously similar standards and similar lessons. But what my goal for you is to do is just to practice this lesson planning process and come up with a potential whole class lesson. This could be a lesson that you use for your whole class lesson for your field experience. It might not be. Your teacher may say, no, I want you to use this text in this this standard, but this assignment, this discussion assignment, is more about the process, and then you may or may not use the final product after you have had a chance to practice the process. So your task is to write your lesson plan using the lesson plan format and all of the various sources, and then make a discussion post attaching your lesson plan to the discussion post, and then writing a reflection by answering the following questions. What makes sense now about the lesson planning process? What was the most difficult part in the lesson planning process? Do you think that you could modify this lesson for a different text and or grade level? What questions do you have about the standards, lesson planning, etc.? Just a little bit more practice and thinking about how you're going to write a quality lesson that's aligned to the standards. So you'll make that initial discussion post. I had told the in-class students to do this by Friday, 10/24. I feel like that's going to be pushing it for you guys since my video is not working how I wanted it to. So let's say if you make your initial post by Monday, 10/27, and then respond by the following Wednesday, I would be absolutely okay with that, because I feel like we're pushing it just a little bit to get you done by Friday, and I do think that that is my mistake, so I don't want to penalize you for my mistakes. So please shoot me a message if you have any questions, and I would be happy to answer them. And we will go from there. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on Monday.